Today's video is brought to you by interesting stuff I found on Twitter, such as this official Necrozma art for the Pokemon Sun and Moon Burning Shadows TCG expansion, and I about near had a heart attack because I thought that this was going to be it. I thought this was like the Ultra Sun and Moon announcement because Joe Merrick just randomly tweeted this out. He said, oh cool, we have Burning Shadows assets, and then we get this epic art of Necrozma. So the Pokemon Company is kind of promoting some Necrozma stuff, as we already know about Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Now, the interesting thing is we are months behind on TCG set releases compared to Japan. So this has already been out in Japan for a while now, but it's gaining extra significance because of Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. We have no information. We don't know if these are fusions, if this is Prism Armor, if this has something to do with Ultra Beast forms. There's just little hints, but they don't add up into anything. So I thought this was it. I thought this was like the first big Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon announcement, because once we get any bit of real news about that game, we can kind of get an understanding about the direction of the game, but we have none of that so far. However, just this idea, the TCG sets, they're kind of following the timeline as well as also being a bit predictive. That the TCG set in Japan is based off of Ho-Oh and Necrozma, because whenever they do a TCG set release in Japan, it's usually split into two mini sets, and then outside of Japan, it's usually combined into a larger set, and then that is like the full TCG expansion that we get. So there's a Necrozma set, and there's also a Ho-Oh set. So right here we can see the Burning Shadows. It's also called Have You Seen the Battle Rainbow? And then the Necrozma side is called Darkness That Consumes Light. Darkness That Consumes Light is like one of the coolest sounding set names for anything I've ever heard, especially in Pokemon, but it does kind of show that there is a lot of emphasis on the Necrozma, and when the set came out, you know, the Pokemon movie hasn't even been out in Japan yet. As we can see right here, the Japanese release for the set was on June 16th. I like how it is kind of less than 2 months between a Japanese and an English release, but this is kind of building up into the Pokemon movie, and apparently it looks like it's trying to build up into Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon as well. And then the next expansion is going to play into Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon even more. So I wonder if the Pokemon Company is messing with us, because they're dropping stuff like this. You know, Pokemon Sun and Moon Burning Shadows announced for the English release as we got the Japan release, and it's like, by the way, here's some big epic art of Necrozma. So I wanted to look more into that, because Necrozma, it is that Prism Pokemon, and it's all black, and we know that all black is carrying over into the Solgaleo and Lunala forms, but I think the Darkness That Consumes Light is a really big sign of this, because as a Prism Pokemon, you know, black is a color that absorbs all of the other colors, and when you look at Necrozma, it does have like that rainbow effect going on with its body designs. We also see it on the Solgaleo Lunala forms, as well as the Lusamine Nihilego form, so it's kind of a trend that's carrying over, and it seems to be something that might get a lot more explanation going into Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So that Darkness That Consumes Light, even though it's just a TCG set name, but with Necrozma being the mascot for it, that kind of adds to what the theme of Necrozma is more about, because we don't really have any information on Necrozma. We have this. Reminiscent of the Ultra Beast, this life form, apparently asleep underground, is thought to have come from another world in ancient times. Light is apparently the source of its energy, so it kind of uses that black color to absorb energy and then create concentrated beams. That it's constantly firing off laser beams, so yeah. Just a laser beam firing Pokemon. And then, like, the biology of this Pokemon, we still don't have much. You know, it's rumored to be related to the Ultra Beast. I'm pretty sure that that's confirmed right now. That when we look at the rest of Necrozma, going into the potential for Pokemon's Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, it's called Ultra. We have Ultra Beast, we have the Ultra Wormhole, we have the Ultra Dimension, and we have an alternate storyline that's probably going to have to deal with, like, Moan, Lusamine, so we might get a little bit more understanding right there, and then potential more expansion into the Ultra Beast, and just kind of, instead of kind of like passing it off at the late game, you know, at the end of the story, it's like, oh, by the way, now you get to go around, collect all the Ultra Beasts, and kind of figure this one out, but maybe going deeper into the Ultra Dimension or understanding that right there. One of the biggest signs that Necrozma is either an Ultra Beast itself or strongly related to the Ultra Beast is this right here. The base stats, that all Ultra Beasts have a prime number for all of their base stats, and Necrozma is no different. So I'm wondering if just the classification of Necrozma goes off of its age, because as we can see right here, you know, it's been dwelling deep underground and it's been asleep for ages. So there wasn't really like Pokemon documenting, you know, the Pokedex, the technology doesn't seem to have been around when Necrozma was initially sleeping underground. So that's kind of like where those sightings came from. The idea of Ultra Beast wasn't really as well defined, and then all of the Aether Foundation and Moan's experimenting on the Ultra Beast, that wasn't well known, so it was just, hey, we have a powerful creature that behaves similarly, if not a little crazier, than all of the other powerful creatures, and there's no reason to think they're any different. That if you just see an Ultra Beast wandering around, for the most part, you don't think that's going to be any different from a Pokemon, unless you actually see it, or unless there's like actually the research and the studies about it coming from the Ultra dimension. So I think Necrozma is just going to get like that big reveal, like, it has to be an Ultra Beast. You know, since Looker at the end of the Ultra Beast storyline said, but I could have sworn it was something. He's like, no, we got all the Ultra Beasts. So maybe there's more undocumented Ultra Beasts. If those get released for Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, though, I don't know what that's going to do to the competitive scene, because already the 7 Ultra Beasts that we have buzzing around right now, they're pretty ridiculous, and they've kind of like set new standards, new highs for some of the things that can happen in competitive Pokemon. So I wonder how that's going to end up playing out, but I think that could relate something into looking into the story for the potential of Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. What I like about these news releases is that we're always like one little bit of information at any time from figuring something out. You know, like the next Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon teaser, it might give us some information, but then it could clarify like, oh, that's what it means for the future, for the rest of the story. We're looking at Necrozma and the other storyline, and that's just kind of going from the darkness that consumes light. This is going to be a pretty big aspect inside of the Pokemon's Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. And then, you know, have you seen the Battle Rainbow, or I think it's also potentially called like something, did you see the Fighting Rainbow? So the translation's fairly rough overall, but yeah, the Fighting Rainbow, that has something to do with Marshadow as well as Ho-Oh, and seems like the TCG sets do take a little bit of that predictive side, so maybe that is going to kind of emphasize how much more apart that Necrozma is going to be in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. That imagine it like this. Kyurem was definitely going to be like the poster child of Pokemon Gray. We got Black and White too. If this was going to be Pokemon Stars instead of split versions, we're going to get Necrozma as well, since we're not going into a new generation, and we're not getting any kind of remakes based off of this. So it's kind of obvious to see that this is where all of the focus is going to be into. So naturally, I started looking into the TCG set itself. I wanted to see if there were any hints or anything kind of going forward looking into Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. But yeah, going off like the TCG movesets as well as the moveset for Necrozma as well, doesn't really give us too many extra hints. I know I've already done like 1.5-ish videos on Necrozma, because I was going for Pokemon Light version. And I was thinking that if we didn't get Pokemon Stars, it was Pokemon Light. We got the split version games like Black and White too, so that kind of makes it weird for the predictive qualities. But overall, I mean, we have a star on Necrozma's back. Now it seems to have been put there by a troll, but it does have that interesting design aspect to it, and it does play around with light pretty hard. But I think the ideas were still there when looking into what Necrozma could mean for the future of the franchise. Now, the interesting thing is the End of Light ability. Pokemon does not receive damage from attacks by your opponent's normal-type Pokemon, or at least Star-type Pokemon. That makes me wonder if Necrozma is going to get a new ability, because it only has the Prism Armor ability. And if there's Ultra forms of Pokemon... Okay, so here's how it looks like. Ultra Beasts, they all have Beast Boost. Now, what happens if a Pokemon gets an Ultra form, and then they all get the same ability as well? Because we have Pokemon like Nihilego, Kartana, Pheromosa, all of the Ultra Beasts, they are much different from each other, but they still share the same ability. I'm wondering if the ability could potentially do the same thing, that if we get a hidden ability on Necrozma, and Necrozma is related to the Ultra forms of the legendaries, if not some kind of Ultra evolution that might play a part in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, I'm wondering if that could also relate to a new ability as well, and if this has something to do with it, the End of Light. Pokemon does not receive damage from attacks by the opponent's normal-type Pokemon or Star Pokemon or whatever. What if it's something about, like, Beam and Light-based moves? Because we already have Bulletproof. We already have Soundproof. There's abilities that interact with a certain subset of moves, but not completely blocking out an entire typing. Also, we have abilities like Levitate. Levitate completely nullifies the ground typing. We have Lightning Rod, Water Absorb, so pretty much there are abilities that just grant immunities to entire typing. Now, this kind of sounds absurd for the TCG because there's like a slightly restricted version of all of the typings, so being able to completely block out an entire typing set, especially for the TCG when that Pokemon doesn't have like extra coverage and stuff, is kind of out there. But I'm looking at it from like that standpoint of, okay, in battle, like that'd be pretty crazy if normal type moves just don't have an effect on that Pokemon as a part of its ability. So kind of granting it a little bit of that ghost aspect, if not just kind of adding a long list, you know, Simple Beam, Hyper Beam, Ice Beam, you know, just like beam moves of that sort don't have any kind of effect on it because maybe they represent light in some kind of way, or maybe like directly light effective moves, because we already know that there's an effective sound typing inside of Pokemon. All we have to do is look at the soundproof ability. I mean, that's a lot of support right there for something that doesn't have a real typing, but if you gave it a real typing, it would already have enough, and then you could add in new exclusive sound type moves, maybe change some other moves into sound typing as well, and then move around like the other Pokemon, because like you look at the Pokemon that have soundproof, we have Exploud, which is a loud Pokemon. Pokemon like the Noivern could realistically have these sound typing as well. Sparkling Aria, that relates to the hidden ability that we have on the Primarina. So Primarina does not have its Liquid Voice hidden ability just yet. That's something to look forward to, guys. In Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, we're at least going to have some kind of potential for the hidden abilities on the starter Pokemon as well. But yeah, Liquid Voice. So it does show that there's these extra aspects to Pokemon moves and abilities. I'm wondering if that's like what this Necrozma hidden ability could do, because it relates to what we see on the TCG. Now, looking at the rest of the TCG, it seems pretty standard. Like, the artwork is really crazy. Like, they took a new design on the artwork, and I love it for the most part. So, like, the TCG, you know, even though I'm not crazy into the game, they always go all out on some of these artworks, that it is one of those extra views that you get on a Pokemon. Then until Pokemon shows up on the TCG or the anime, you really don't know anything about it outside of its sprites and Pokedex entry, so it does add another layer of personality as well as a representation of that Pokemon. Yeah, looking at like the rest of the set, alright, Necrozma is a hyper rare, but so do a lot of other Pokemon, so I don't think there's like really much else to be gained from that, but I do think it is kind of interesting how this breakdown could have been a little bit more of a forecast as to what's going into Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. I don't think there's really much else for the information, you know, we just have GX, we have an expansion on Pokemon Sun and Moon, but it was just a little bit of extra thought, you know, you look at it, and yeah, Necrozma's in the spotlight, guys. It's going to absorb the spotlight, shoot it back at you, but it's still getting pretty big features right now. I'm looking forward to see what else we get, because yeah, Necrozma was... there was nothing, you know, Necrozma was just a Pokemon that kind of existed, much like a lot of the other ones. You know, you look at Rayquaza, you look at Giratina, you just kind of caught them in the post-game once you found out they existed, and then you realize that there's a bigger story behind this Pokemon with the follow-up games. Necrozma's going to be no different, but this has relation to Ultra Beast, this has relation to other Pokemon, another part of the timeline, another part of the storyline, so it could expand a lot beyond Pokemon Sun and Moon. That just gives me a bit more hope for the game. So you guys enjoy the video, hope you all have a nice day, thank you very much for watching.